piling up. Money is being spent in Washington faster than we can even absorb. It's hard for people to understand the amount of dollars that are coming out of Washington and what's really behind it. So I think one of the most important things that I've heard from people is their concern over this type of spending. So how would you address the fiscal irresponsibility of previous Congresses in creating a national debt of now $12 trillion, a federal deficit this year alone of $1.5 trillion, and projected annual deficits of $1 trillion or more dollars for the foreseeable future? And then on top of all that, you have the unfunded liabilities for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid of over $50 trillion. Makes you wonder why you guys want this job to begin with. But how would you go about addressing this? Reed?
We've got ourselves in a real problem. And the government has, through the last, since Roosevelt, and you could go before then a little bit, had created promises and have made promises to people that people have now made decisions on and are living. I want to speak a little bit first to the stimulus package. I kind of call the stimulus package a cash for clunkers for the whole economy. Because in reality, the government can only get money from three places, right? Well, they can tax it, get money by taxing it. They can get money by borrowing it. And they can get money by a click of a mouse and printing it. All three of those solutions are bad. And I can just see the administration and the folks that have approved the stimulus package scratching their heads wondering why we're not creating jobs. Well, when you shift money from one sector to another sector, this sector goes down and this sector goes up. Because this is what Andy was saying a moment ago, picking winners and losers. And Franklin Roosevelt was a master at it. Now it looks like Barack Obama's pretty good at it. It lends itself toward patronage. We have to get the government out of the business of removing risk from business. If any business owner is protected from risk, they will take risk that's unreasonable. And so if you wonder why General Motors doesn't really care whether it works, well, they started with $37 billion, and then the government said, well, we're going to let you go bankrupt, and then the government took over the company and gave it to the union. And when you remove risk, then business owners make bad decisions. There has to be a consequence for every decision that any business makes. And that means you have to let businesses fail when failure is part of the deal. And had we let businesses fail back in part, and had we let the economy go, what would happen is we begin to move this boom and bust cycle out of it, and you begin to level this situation out. Because business would automatically adjust to the free market. They would stop taking risks that are unreasonable because there's no safety net. And then at the end of the day, we can begin to reduce what actually has occurred, and the debt can be begun to be worked off. The only way I can see our way out of this, because I don't believe you can tax your way to prosperity, so taxes are out. We have to grow the economy. You can't grow the economy with the government sucking the very lifeblood out of the economy, trying to make it grow. And so we have to get government smaller. We have to reduce duplication. We have to get the business of government back to the states the way the Constitution originally intended, so that that government is close to the people. At that point, you can begin to turn this around. But you're probably not going to turn around until then.
The interesting part about TARP was that Reed's right. It took the risk away from the business owners, but it placed it squarely upon you folks, because we're the ones that paid for it. We're the ones that money came from. My kids are here in the audience. That debt is not going to be paid off when they die, nor when their kids die. That debt is going to be there for generations to come. The reality is I wouldn't ask my son to buy me lunch, but I just asked him to guarantee the prosperity that we hope to have by spending that money. That's the only reason that money got spent, is because we wanted to keep things going the way they were. We weren't willing, and I'm saying we because we didn't speak up. We didn't get loud enough in the last election. We weren't willing to take what the cycles were giving us. So now, I've asked my son not only to pay my lunch, I've asked him to pay for my whole existence. That's got to change. Those are the things that TARP did to us. They put us in a bad position. They put our kids in a bad position and our grandkids in a bad position. And then there's not a single person in this room, I believe, that wants to be there. I don't know what's on that, but all right. The reality is this: businesses need to fail. When you go through an unencumbered growth period, you're going to have businesses that enter the marketplace that shouldn't have been there. Their profit margins are too high, or their costs are too high. They're successful while the economy is going well. But when the economy turns down, the reality is it's a shakeup. And some of those businesses will have to go out of business. And they will retool, and those folks will learn something else, and they will be employed as something else. We have to let the natural cycle take place. Otherwise, we've just pushed this off to the future. There's going to be another shoe that drops. We've got unemployment at 9.8%. What's going to happen next year when all these people who bought cars through the cash for clunkers don't buy cars? We just took them out of the marketplace. We took them out of the marketplace and we let them go to any company that they wanted to buy cars from. So every one of these government programs that creates a winner or loser, the reality is all it did was push off the inevitable. Our job is to correct that. It's not to sit here and try and fix everything in one term. My job is to go there, get this country back on track, and then turn it over to somebody else that's like-minded. It's not my job to go there and be there forever. You go there, you do something right, you come back home and you turn it over. If we can't find 3 or 4 people to serve our district in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we truly are in trouble. There's not one person up here that couldn't be replaced by somebody out there in the audience. The fact is we just went ahead and we stood up at this point.
It's such a daunting task that there are no sound bites, there are no catchphrases, there are no short commercials that are going to deal with this. This is a systemic, nonpartisan, Washington culture, U.S. culture, world culture problem that we've had, that we've just by bits and bits looked to government to solve problems as opposed to our own gut strengths, our own efforts, our own abilities here at the local level. It doesn't occur in any one election, and it doesn't occur, each party is as much a culprit. It's what we as citizens look to our government to do. Spending 8 years on the county board, I've had fellow board members who talk the talk, and then when it comes down to it, you know, that interest group that's sitting behind us at the meetings, or those phone calls, or that, gee, I don't know how this is going to look in the papers when I vote no to this spending proposal. This is something we're all going to have to look in the mirror on, myself included, and ask ourselves, is the government the be-all and end-all of problem solving? Certainly Washington is the last place that should be solving most of our problems. They need to deal with the big picture issues. When a congressman is elected and gets to Washington, the pressures are enormous, and as we can tell, almost unbearable, that the interest groups, the K Street lobbyists, those who take the time to go to the congressman's office and ask him for something, it is going to take an enormous amount of time and effort from each individual citizen to change that culture. It's going to have to come from each one of us. And we're going to have to talk amongst ourselves that we have to look to another direction than the federal government to solve our problems. It's not going to be a short-term fix. It's going to have to be a long-term cultural